Today's topic, very exciting. What is Donald Trump's mission from a higher perspective? We have been asked repeatedly. But then also a very important topic now, reckoning with Germany after the election. I hope that tempers have somewhat calmed down by now. One day after the election in Germany, this is now the most important video I am making of all the videos of recent times. Why? Because it will be the essence of the recent videos and shows us where we stand today. My first question on this is, what is wisdom, my dear ones? What is wisdom? Where is the stark difference between knowledge and wisdom? Many think they know something, but does it lead us to the solution? To theorize? What is true wisdom? Knowledge about wisdom is not wisdom. It is only the knowledge about wisdom. Wisdom is the action. Wisdom is the earthly expression of knowledge on the outside. By their deeds, you will recognize them. That is wisdom. It doesn't help us to constantly theorize, should have, could have. And it is wonderful when many people have a lot of knowledge. We will address that today, but have no solution on how to apply it. Theory and practice are indeed different. By nature, I have repeatedly received comments like, elections are invalid, we have an occupation statute, casting a vote into an urn is something very bad, or the topic of the Chancellor Act came up. Yes, it is correct, but it is a theory. My question to the pessimists is, give us here and now realistic and feasible, the wisdom solution that moves us all forward. Realistically feasible, not theoretical. And then there is usually silence. Dear ones, we must now learn to take our theoretical knowledge so far into reality, into the earthly plane, that it becomes feasible. But there is no single solution for this principle. They are steps that must or may be taken, small steps that ultimately form a whole. Do you want today to plant a seed for an apple tree? So, do you then expect that tomorrow the first fruits will be on the apple tree? We address all questions in the comments we had, and we will also answer them for you today. That's why this will be such an important video, so that it is understandable for everyone. I just want to say one more thing to the commentators. I sincerely thank you for the thousands, tens of thousands of comments in the last few days. We have read them all, spending hours daily on them. One thing particularly stood out to us. All those who claim to possess more knowledge, many of them, use blanket accusations in the comments that were massively below the belt. And that shows us that they are also driven by over-emotion. That shows us that they have no solution, but can point fingers at others. Okay? To them, I just say, do it better. The type of verbal expression, the type of language, is a very clear language of blanket accusations, defamation, condescending words, and really, really below the belt. This suggests that the dark side always wants to establish itself. The dark side is loud, it is shrill, it accuses, it points fingers at others. The light doesn't need that, it reflects. And the dark wants to be seen because it wants to infect others, and it cannot handle the light of people who are full of light. And that's why they feel triggered and need to project it onto others. And they do this in a very clear and distinct way. We can see it, we can recognize it. Many are disappointed, currently, dear ones, that a certain party in Germany did not receive more votes. although they actually emerged as the winners of the elections because they doubled their number of votes. We don't want to discuss why, how, or why. There are also voices saying that election fraud was clearly involved. We also had that in the year, yes, 4 years ago, 5 years ago in the Donald Trump election, quite obviously. And I believe that this has also played a significant role in Germany for a long time. Well, that's just how it is. But those who have falsified know that they have falsified. And it is in the field. It is energetically in the field, and the truth comes to light. Okay, so let's take a quick look at what happened. Compared to the last election, our BlackRock specialist FM arrogantly announced right after the election that he will not work with any leftists or Greens and insults them with questionable words. Already one day after the election, he announced, "None of us are talking about closing borders to curb illegal migration." Wow. Wait. The BlackRock specialist, who before the election promised with the CDU that there would be extensive border controls to curb illegal migration, that, my dear ones, are the immoral agents of the deep state, whom many people still follow. He is implementing exactly what was dictated to him. Who really is Donald Trump? And that from a higher spiritual perspective, these questions have often been directed at us, and that's why we want to address them today. I will try to remain as neutral as possible, but I will say up front, the message is simply the message. Some call him the Antichrist. I've heard that too. Others as the Messiah or Savior. Then many letters came in about what his spiritual mission is from a higher perspective. We are pursuing that today. You will be surprised by what is happening on the whole, what could be behind it. It will be really exciting today. See you soon. Is he the Antichrist or the Savior? Our answer from the highest original source is neither. But then what is he? We are allowed to understand, to learn that there is not only black or white, not just left or right, how to taught. Every person, every soul carries light within, but also shadow sides. It is always about which part of it we live in the here and now, and express our royal aspect. We are all incarnated here on earth with a mission, dear ones. A soul mission. Whether we live it depends on our inner guidance. Whether we listen to it is a completely different matter. Many people don't even believe in reincarnation and think that nothing comes after. Others believe in it, but are only guided by their intellect. They don't know their plan and wander blindly through the world. That is the fool in the tarot. But there are also, I want to briefly address two forms today, two types of incarnations, which we should know, which we should be aware of, to shed light on today's topic. Some have a personal mission of further development, refinement, the gilding of their soul. These are usually younger souls who still have some experiences and tasks ahead of them. But even old souls, of course, always continue to learn. However, they fundamentally bring more abilities into existence. We all have up to 12 soul parts. Among them, there is an oversoul. We have an oversoul, which in turn also has 12 soul parts. So 12 times 12 is 144. We can experience a lot. Then on the other side, there are number 2, ancient souls, who had once ascended. They had managed to complete everything. As Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, no one leaves until they have paid the last penny. We are talking about, in India, they call it moksha. So old souls who possess much wisdom and knowledge. They choose not to leave, but they have a special mission. They have proven themselves trustworthy to God, and they have made it their mission to impart much wisdom and knowledge to people. They are present in every era of humanity. They help people to help themselves. They are ambassadors of love, ambassadors of God. As mentioned, these are not all types of possible incarnations, but we need these 2 for today, on which we want to focus. So back to the question. Donald Trump, Antichrist or Messiah? Both, dear ones, are sweeping generalizations that do not hit the mark. Does he represent light or shadow? That would be the better question. You know, there are some who accuse him of being in darkness. The following should be said about that. Please look behind the curtain. Look, behind the curtain, many imagine a true, enlightened, and wise person as someone sitting at 4,000 meters altitude with crossed legs in the lotus position, meditating and chanting Om. It could hardly be further from the truth and real life. This person sitting there on the summit is currently living out a part of their soul's mission on Earth. He is gaining experiences and refining them. Who knows, many of us might have sat up there before, in a past life. That's great, dear ones, but it has little to do with real life in the here and now. If one were to show this person the worries and fears of the real world, confront him with them, give him a job, entrust him with the upbringing of, let's say, 2 strong-willed boys, and let him operate within our system, then he probably wouldn't be so relaxed anymore. It's a different bubble. A true leader with a lightsaber, dear ones, a true warrior of God, is to be found among the people where he must be. He has charisma, can express himself, wants clear and distinct words, and delivers messages to people. Remember, there is no Messiah or Savior. That is a church construct to train you out of personal responsibility. So how do you recognize a true enlightened leader? How do you recognize someone who truly means well for you? Means Jesus taught us self-empowerment. Do as I do, and do even greater things. The crucifixion, the suffering, the Messiah was invented, and the narrative of guilt and atonement to sell, on which all 3 major world religions reside in the West. While, for example, the ancient Greeks or Celts were in search of knowledge, wisdom, truth, and love. And Jesus knew that the true lights are among us, and they show it to us. They teach us self-responsibility. Okay. However, whether we want to see it, that's a completely different matter. In Europe, at least, Donald Trump has been portrayed as a great despot for years. He is deliberately shown with distorted facial features to visually support this. Sure, the one who makes the effort takes it all in unfiltered, and thus a narrative is created that is mostly no longer questioned, because I've already formed my opinion. I become inflexible and rigid. Just take a look online. Many talk about him from the past few years. Observe. Oh, how he speaks. Observe how he interacts with people around him. He keeps all his promises. He moves people emotionally. With him, it's not before the election is not the same as after the election. With him, after the election is before the election. He has kept everything so far. It is what it is. And his current election was also a massive landslide victory in which he achieved something incredible. According to my information, he won in all the swing states, which is significant. While Brussels, with German support, is rattling sabers, the Americans are tired of war. The Americans have seen that their past administrations caused great suffering. That's true. But they genuinely want to change it now. If we don't extend a hand to them now and keep dwelling on what was, yes, let's learn from the past. But it is not the current reality. Something is allowed to change, and it is being changed right now. Trump wants to sit down with China and Russia in the coming days to propose halving the defense budget. That is exactly 180 degrees opposite to the EU. So if we all ask ourselves the following question now, do I choose the side that wants to wage war, or the one that wants to create peace? Then the decision is easy for us, right? Now don't come with please. Please don't come with would have, could have, should have. We are only evaluating the here and now. Everything else is speculation. We know that a large part of people in Europe are still stuck in the past. This is a process that is currently ongoing. Yes, the USA has, over the past decades, overthrown governments, infiltrated wars, initiated them, endangered world peace. But now, please also consider that Germany, back then, with Yugoslavia, supported a war that violated international law. Likewise, in Afghanistan and so on. But the EU is still stuck on this course. And yes, now there is someone who can turn the tide. Who has the strength, the courage, the perseverance, and the determination to do so? The past governments were mired in a swamp of corruption, drug trafficking, pedophilia scandals, and far worse, which I do not wish to discuss here. I suspect the same in Germany. But now there is a unique opportunity to rethink and reflect anew. Should we do that? In my comments, I have read many comments saying, nothing changes anyway. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It's controlled by both sides and serves the cabal. They are all puppets. The New World Order. For me, this is a very pessimistic and past event-based thought structure that doesn't move us forward one bit. It keeps us in inactivity and rigidity. We have experienced disappointments. Yes, that is correct. But now it's time to stand up again, to support a vision that, in many eyes, is worth standing up for. That is wisdom, action following knowledge. The right decision? Can we still do that? And then there were statements like, the election laws are invalid anyway, so why bother voting? Yes, the Federal Constitutional Court decided that in 2012. It's all true, theoretically. But as long as it continues like this and everyone accepts it, we call it applicable law, not valid law. When I was still in Germany, dear ones, and was taking action against the system, and quite massively, I even used it to my advantage. I saw it as a gift. Why? Well, that's called strategizing. Strategizing I saw it as a gift and the opportunity behind it. Yes, all regulations and laws are not published in the Federal Law Gazette, and theoretically, factually, have no validity. All correct? But the employees, they think it is valid, and they want to adhere to it. So, I did nothing other than hold their own laws, not mine, right under their noses. Look, these are valid for you. And with that, I achieved great success for many people. I used what was available to us at the time. Of course, that should change. Germany definitely needs a constitution and valid laws. No question about it. But as long as we continue as before, nothing can change. And that's why it's important to take small steps, one after the other. Then we had comments. And I think they are great comments. Thank you, even if they were extremely negatively phrased and very below the belt. But they are still important, perhaps to clarify for all of you. Yes, we do have an occupation statute that, first, needs to be dissolved. And therefore we remain inactive. Also correct? If it hasn't already changed, no idea, but according to the current status. But what good does it do to harp on these arguments and remain in lethargy because of it? A sovereign Germany, my dear ones, requires the consent of the Allies just once. The Allied forces, period. England, America, Russia, and also China. Wait, China? Why China? Why didn't I mention France? Yes, but they also have a bit of a say. France was not a victorious power. Very few people know that. China had given this status to France in exchange for a few islands in the Pacific. What is Trump doing right now? He is negotiating with China and Russia. Take a look. These outbound powers must agree. Only then can a peaceful renewal of Germany take place. It's simple. And indeed, these paths are being carefully and thoroughly considered for the very first time in history since 1949. Leveled. That's already a stone being cleared from the path. Whether it will happen, we will see. But at least the prerequisite for it seems to be emerging now. Positive thinking, confidence. And what we see is moving in this direction. It's important to recognize that while others are criticizing Donald Trump and calling him the Antichrist, as I said, I've also been accused of this multiple times. And the EU continues to stir up conflicts. He is currently trying to reduce the defense budget and negotiate with the victorious powers. What can one make of that? Dear people, dear ones, conflicts have never been peacefully resolved with arms deliveries. But that's exactly what the EU supports. But we also have truly incredible, fantastic comments. I just have to mention it again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. A huge wave will sweep through Europe. Epochal times, out of the devilish EU, true spirituality, here it comes, is expressed through action. Wow. And many more great comments that have also expressed positivity. And that was the majority. And for that, thank you. But we already knew in advance, and it's clear that voter turnout in Germany will be significantly higher than before. We read in many comments, and it was expressed, that there is now a unique opportunity to be on equal footing with the USA and Russia again, to be able to conduct peaceful negotiations. This was a great motivation for many. Ultimately, time and discussions will follow. But certainly, at the very least, the foundation would be laid As mentioned, in 2021, voter turnout in Germany was 36.5%. In 2025, it was 50. I believe it was even more. Okay, that this number is not quite right. But okay. And then there are those who say, for example, about Donald Trump. Yes, he's just putting on a show for us to later introduce a new slavery and servitude. Yes, there were even quite a few such comments. But here too, I say that this represents a very pessimistic perspective based on past experiences. All the conversations that were conducted with the media by us, with Brahmins, seers, people, do not see such a scenario. I want to share this with you. On the contrary, even the messages from the spiritual world that we have received point to a much brighter time. Okay, I just wanted to emphasize that once again. These dystopian predictions, like those from an Alois Erlmeyer, are no longer relevant to me. Since the collective time field and the timelines have been corrected, technically artificially created timelines have been destroyed. Also with the help of higher powers. That's what I call it for now. We won't go into that in more detail today in the argumentation. Many also base it on the fact that, for example, the Americans, led by Elon Musk, want to promote AI. This is viewed negatively. You can see it that way, no question. However, I personally consider it a relatively one-sided perspective, and I'll explain why. Words in the comments like AI is satanic, AI will take over, destroy us like Allah, Terminator, wants to enslave us, belongs to the darkness. These are blanket statements, left, right, up, down, corner statements, without reflection. Each of us already uses AI daily, whether in the car or with the phone. Even if AI were to be banned, and now it gets exciting, then no one seriously believes that the dark side would adhere to it, right? Honestly, they would continue to develop, and then eventually, exactly what happens in Terminator would occur. Okay, so far, correct. And that's why, in a world of duality, light and shadow, it's important to establish balance. Okay? So, to develop an AI that protects us against it, and against many other things. And besides, if you ever want to become a partner of a star community, want to join the peaceful union of galactic federations, then we also need a light AI. Also to protect us from dangers from outside, but also from within. We cannot stop progress and go back to riding around in carriages. However, with a light consciousness, we can use the bread knife for cutting instead of killing. Okay. The complete exclusion and rejection of this development seems a bit naive to me. And that's why it's important. Our consciousness decides. And that's why it's so important that theft is abolished. Quite simple. If we take another closer look at this man, Donald Trump, then something very special becomes clear and obvious to us. He has taken on the cabal, since we're on the topic. He has taken on the deep state and informed them that he is draining the swamp. The Epstein list is also on the table. The exchange of corrupt employees is happening right now. You know, the dark side has been able to establish itself intensively and massively over so many centuries. This war cannot be ended overnight. And none of us want to fight it voluntarily. But he chose this path. They tried to murder him, you know it. They did not succeed. They tried to sue him and pin criminal activities on him. They did not succeed. They tried to manipulate the elections. What did he do? He continues. He stands up. He never gave up. If he were on the dark side, my dear ones, he would act very differently. He would take an easier path. He would forge pacts with the Kabbalists. Act together. But he does not do that. But all previous presidents have done it. Yes. Mr. Nice Guy and whatever they were all called. He dismisses and removes endlessly many corruptible employees and government officials who served the old system. He eradicates. That's a great term. Eradicates. He eradicates. And he replaces these positions with morally upright employees. He dares to fight, my dear ones, a fight that, as long as I can remember and have been conscious, no one has dared to undertake. That reminds me of the old Egyptian saying that I wrote in my last book about Akhenaten. The three essential pillars of life: knowledge, will, but then also dare. Okay. Anyone can talk. Anyone can point fingers at others. Do it better. I wouldn't dare, although I have lived many lives. People tend to imagine politicians more as reserved figures. Who barely shows emotions, is constantly composed and very serious. This man couldn't be further from that. He shows emotions, raises his voice when he recognizes injustice. I know that from myself I can also lose my composure at times. I can also express my feelings when I see injustice, because I have an incredibly high sense of injustice. And I have to take action. He speaks freely from the heart. To his fellow humans, he is also interested in them. I know many don't see it that way, but there is evidence for it. He is authentic, and that's what Americans see in him. Authenticity. That is true spirituality. Many Germans interpret his expressions as malicious, but that is not the case. Think about the history. Take a look at it. Please, watch the video from 2024. 10 seconds. After the assassination attempt on him, the grazing shot, he stood up and was immediately, as is typical for all presidents, surrounded and brought to safety. Again, I am not strategizing at this moment when my life is in danger and I receive a grazing shot. I react in shock instinctively and intuitively. That reveals my true nature. What did he do? He pushed his staff aside, looked at the people, and shouted the words fight, fight, fight 3 times. Even in this state of threat, his life in danger and injured, he still has the collective of people in his consciousness and speaks to them and encourages them even though he is severely injured. Does an egocentric, self-centered, focused, narcissistic billionaire? No. Look, watch the videos. Especially in such a situation as mentioned, one reacts intuitively, instinctively, and here it has shown again how connected he is with the people and how important they are to him. His thoughts, his feelings, and his actions are clearly oriented towards the collective. You will see that again at the end of our contribution today. See it again. If you have a different opinion, again, it's no problem. We are all in a learning process in life, but please, take the effort and watch some videos and speeches from him over a few days. Make the effort. Instead of parroting prepackaged mass media propaganda, the image that is shown of him in Europe has been wrong from the start, and it is deceitful. I believe that even if he could walk on water, many would still say, look, he can't even swim. For many, what he does is not tangible. The classic pessimist has already given up, my dear ones. Given up believing. Believing in people who want to change something for us. We must learn. not to generalize anymore. And that, unfortunately, many still do. Moreover, it would require something in my eyes that many cannot do, namely to open their hearts. Many people, from their own experiences and traumas, out of fear of being hurt, have closed their hearts. That is understandable, that is comprehensible. Because when we open our hearts, we become vulnerable again. So, it's better to keep them closed. Please open your heart. Open your heart once more for the future of humanity, for your fellow humans, because that can bring you healing and thus also to the greater whole. Look at the people around him, for example. His staff, his closest confidants. They are all warm-hearted people who embrace each other, who laugh, and see their task as a calling, a true calling, as a soul mission. And they dedicate themselves to this task with heart. You can feel it. When the new FBI chief, for example, this Kash Patel, gave his speech at the inauguration, well, for me, it was moving. And I felt that he was speaking from the heart. When did you last see that with EU and German politicians? They can only do one thing, all the forces around him. Label them as right-wing radicals. They work with these blanket accusations. Many would now inevitably have to deal with this underground gravedigger mood in Germany, but they can't and don't want to. And if they would look, then they would realize, and it would open their hearts like a big barn door. And what we are currently seeing with the American president, that is the earthly implementation of a higher plan from the light side. That is the message we have received. He is the icebreaker that humanity needs at the moment, and he needs strength and power to move the big picture forward. All the confident optimists among you will surely understand this well. And to all pessimists, I say again, open your hearts, dear ones, take a look. Also for your own good. The election results have clearly shown how a large part of the people think that the old parties will still fix it. Well, maybe they are not thinking. Maybe they are being thought. Let's think of the Tavistock Institute and all that has happened. They gave their votes to parties that are quite obviously for the war. That is no longer a secret. That is a hard fact. What will, my question, China, the USA, and Russia do? How can the corrupt individuals and those surrounded by lobbyists, the path of Brussels, and thus especially of Germany, be cleaned up? Next question. And many voters seem to continue giving their money to this system voluntarily. I'll give you official numbers from the Federal Criminal Police Office, my dear ones. Murder and manslaughter in Germany, 2014. 1 victims, 2023. 2023, Euhymatretum, an increase of 927%. Sexual assaults and rapes, 2040s, 949 cases. And that is already extremely shocking to me. 2023, 54 cases, an increase of 4.716%. This is unacceptable, my dear ones. This is not humane. In 2014, there were 18,512 reports of bodily harm. 2023, remember, it was 1,282, 529, an increase of 6,928%. Why do we continue to support those who have obviously allowed this indeed? I ask. It's now about reflecting. I'm just asking questions. We can clearly and distinctly see, my dear ones, that in America efforts are already underway at full speed to curb corruption and crime. Mostly, it has been indirectly controlled by the governments themselves. Because they have ensured this through poor policies and as actively supported these crimes. And I ask the question again, if the old parties decide against disarmament planning for the warlike conflict and against a sincere deportation of criminals, what will Russia, the USA, and China do? If we assume that the EU and also Germany themselves are stuck in a deep swamp of crime, then they must take a course against the USA and Russia. Sure, there's no other way. So that all of this doesn't come to light. But I tell you, it will. The light is currently making its way through the darkness. Because now is the time when the truth comes to light. How? That will soon be revealed. We are convinced, according to the messages we have received, that Donald Trump is serious. And he is a great figure, otherwise this wouldn't be possible. He was sent to us by the spiritual world to serve as an ambassador and to pave the way for us. Whether people in Europe will accept it, embrace it, and whether they are ready to reconsider their own stance, that remains to be seen. It is, and this is also a message. He is an ancient soul that has likely had a lot of experience with light and shadow, and repeatedly fought against the darkness, and therefore can tactically maneuver so skillfully today. He chose to serve the time of light. That's the current information. But I also feel and sense an infinitely great resonance with my soul here. We know why. But that is of a private nature, because he has spoken to us, Donald Trump, on the spiritual level. And we are often connected. For us, he is one of the strongest and most authentic presidents America has ever seen. Currently, we are experiencing how Americans are once again interested in Germany. I mean, honestly, wouldn't you be interested if J.D. Vance had never given that speech where he speaks the truth about Germany and the EU? He does that because he is interested. Currently, we are experiencing how America is once again interested in us, wanting to establish peace in the world, and also wants to pursue a common course. Now it's up to us. Whether we continue to follow a corrupt, over-bureaucratized giant like the EU that consumes billions or trillions of tax money. Hungary has already announced that it might leave the EU if necessary, and is doing really great things at the moment. Take a look at it. Right? Well, are we truly returning to the course of the true values of Germans? The famous German virtues: sincerity, modesty, honesty, straightforwardness, a good and strong sense of justice and moral compass, love of God. Very important, integrity, tolerance, determination, incorruptibility, even more important, and restraint, so being more than appearance. I just say, let's defy envy, resentment, detachment, hatred, pessimism, and look towards a future full of values that are worthy of love. As Hölderlin once said, it is time to set aside the heaviness of thought, the lack of action. And for that, I will quote a comment from my last video that I found impressive and significant. Thanks to the author. A government that continuously raises fear of supposed mortal enemies of the system, both internally and externally, through constant media bombardment, and simultaneously through the generation of a deeply antisocial sense of unity based on fear, constantly trying to militarize their non-sovereign citizenry, has been called fascism for 90 years. End of quote. Let's be like Alexander the Great, my dear ones, with the Gordian knot, which no one could untie. He took the sword and cut through the rope. Okay, be like Archangel Michael. The party, as we know, that wanted to follow the American course received about 20% of the votes. That's double compared to the last election. This is a very clear desire from many Germans for a change of course. If all the information available is accurate. Now it gets funny. Must. Now, Donald Trump, grant Mr. Ma's permission. Here, to play Chancellor in Germany with you. This will not be an easy undertaking, my dear ones. Let's consider that the situation in the White House has changed. He is a completely different president than his corrupt, deep state predecessors. This could become very exciting. After all, Donald Trump already stated during his last term that he is in favor of a peace treaty for Germany. Don't forget that. Now he will have to address the issue again. When the border to East Germany fell back then, Poland's leadership is said to have also stated that large parts of Poland must be returned to Germany. But due to the lack of a peace treaty and only an economic union, this has not happened yet. Donald Trump will also have to solve the same problem with Japan and Korea. Okay, that's on the topic of history. Germany's liberation, sovereignty, it still needs certain building blocks. And let's remember, there is, and many doubt this, many criticize it, or say it's a conspiracy theory, the so-called Chancellor Act, which must be signed. What is that? Many Germans don't even know about it. Okay, so the Chancellor Act is a document that every Chancellor of Germany must sign on the orders of the Allies before taking the oath of office. In this book, there is a book about it. It's interesting. The Chancellor Act Egon Bahr and General G.H. Gomossa. So, in the book of this general, Gerhard Helmut Gomossa, former head of the MAD, the Military Counterintelligence Service. It can be read what he had to say about the Chancellor Act. He mentioned it, and he should know. Quote, the Secret State Treaty of May 21st, 1949 was classified by the Federal Intelligence Service as strictly confidential. In it, the fundamental reservations of the victors regarding the sovereignty of the Federal Republic until the year 2099 were established, which today is probably hardly known to anyone. The media sovereignty of the Allied powers over German newspaper and broadcasting media extends to the year 2099 in this matter. The Chancellor Act refers to a series of documents in which the Allied victors of World War II recorded binding reservation rights for their authority over Germany. And according to statements by the former Chancellor advisor, Egon Bahr, all chancellors of the Federal Republic of Germany had to sign this document at the beginning of their term. It is the reservation right of the Allies, the USA, Great Britain, France, which allows them, in their official capacity, to remove a non-compliant chancellor at any time, and if necessary, to suspend parts of the basic law. Egon Bahr, the former federal minister and chancellor advisor, confirmed in 2009 in a text for Die Zeit, the magazine Die Zeit, the existence of the Chancellor file. He even claims that all chancellors from Konrad Alexander to Helmut Kohl were in the CIA, which would be revealed when the files are opened. In 2017, not long ago, a parliamentary inquiry was even made, directed at the Council, discussing the impact of the Chancellor file on EU politics. Look at that. The inquiries assumed that the Chancellor file also allowed non-European powers, like the USA, to have opportunities to influence the shaping of EU policy? Yes, of course. So, the existence and significance of this Chancellor file are subjects of much controversy and criticism. Some see these documents as evidence of control over German politics, while others dismiss them as insignificant or as a conspiracy theory. We might find out someday. Okay, well, that's about the Chancellor file. Okay? I just wanted to mention that again. Whether Donald Trump will finally make the impossible possible and succeed, I can't tell. You. No one knows that. However, I am full of confidence. Because according to our information and messages, he actually has plenty of guardians and powerful spirit guides on his side. And by that, I don't mean the physical earthly bodyguards, but the higher authority. Whether he can resist the temptations of the satanic times like Yeshua did in the Bible, I think so. Because he has already proven it and remained true to himself and the people, despite election fraud, despite assassination attempts and everything else. Everyone who has done business with him, on a handshake so far, according to what can be read, he has not disappointed. He kept all his commitments, promises. He seems to be well guided mentally at the moment, and he listens to his soul. He listens to his guidance and remains steadfast. He does not give up. There are people who also see him as an avenging angel. The word has been mentioned before. Call it what you will. For some, it is the word revenge. For some, it might simply be the sword. Justice, the sword of justice. What did you call it? Chainsaw of biotopathy. To restore justice and drain the swamp, and for that, it really requires the strength. And if we look at the whole big picture again, what is happening right now? What we read, see, possible consciousness ascension of the Earth from 3D to 5D. Possible contact with extraterrestrial races that have joined into a light galactic federation. Destruction of technologically created and artificial timelines. End of the Mayan calendar, end of the Kali Yuga, end of the Platonic Earth year of 25,000 not 20 years. And when you look at all that, what also comes as messages from karmic councils and higher instances, then it doesn't just look good for us, my dear ones. Everything is currently timed and orchestrated like in a symphony orchestra. Now is the right time when change can and may occur. To conclude today's video, I would like to read something to you. A speech that the American President Donald Trump gave freely a few years ago. To the American people, from his heart to the hearts of the citizens of the United States. Listen to it. Consider whether there has ever been such a moving, humble, and heartfelt speech from a German or European chancellor or president. Speech by Donald Trump. I will read it to you. In a few years, some will look back and wonder if they made the right decision, whether they took advantage of all the opportunities. Together we have the same mission. In your lifetime, you will find some things unfair. You will think that you didn't deserve some things and that there are no guarantees. But rise up and fight a fight. Never give up. Do not give up on doing what you believe is right. Nothing worth doing was ever easy. The more just you become, the more resistance you will experience. Oh, true words. In your hearts are inscribed the values of service, sacrifice, and dedication. Now you must go out into the world and turn your hopes and dreams into action. America has always been the land of dreams. Because America is a nation of true believers. When the victors landed in Plymouth, they prayed. When the founders wrote the Declaration of Independence, they invoked our Creator 4 times. Because in America, we do not worship the government, but God. For this reason, we proudly declare on our currency, "In God we trust." And for this reason, we proudly declare that we are one nation under God. The history of America is the story of an adventure. That was built with deep faith, great dreams, and humble beginnings. The next generation of American leaders will never give up. There will be times in their lives when they want to stop. Never give up. Never stop fighting for what you believe in and for the people who care about them. Carry dignity and pride and demand the best from yourself. The more people tell you that it's absolutely not possible, undoubtedly impossible even, indeed, the more you should be determined to prove them wrong. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, especially when a broken system tells them they are wrong. The more certain you should be that you must keep moving forward. And always have the courage to be yourself. Wow, authentic. America is better when people put their faith into action. This is about keeping the people great. Pray to God and follow His teachings. Today, a new chapter also begins for each of them. As their story continues from here, you will be shaped by their vision, their persistence, and their grasp. They will build a future where we have the courage to follow our dreams. No matter what the cynics and doubters say, they will have the confidence to express the hopes of their hearts and to express the love. To express that moves their soul, as long as you are proud of your faith, bold in your convictions, and in belief in God. Then they will not fail. As long as America remains true to its values, loyal to its citizens, and devoted to its Creator, our best days are yet to come. And I just want to let you know that God will bless you. I just want to say that you are special in every way. God bless you. End of quote. I wish you a blessed week. Be blessed. And I hope to answer some questions and comments that were there with the video, perhaps to have provided a few new pieces of information. Topic: Occupation Statute, Chancellor Act. Our new Chancellor must also get approval from Putin and Trump. It can really become quite exciting to see what comes our way. And I hope you are satisfied with the message that came from the spiritual world. What we can represent here to write, we have written, although a bit more came. I see everything positively that is coming our way. I am optimistic and see a bright future for us. Okay, in this sense,